Domhnaill's latest collection of poems for Palestine and other places of injustice. I'm just going to hand you over to our poetry editor, Tommy Collins, who's going to say a little bit about Revival Press and to launch the book for Mike.
Díos Murray Cordia agus tá Fíorál orm Seannacht ag seoladh an leabhar ear specialta seo, Poems for Palestine and Other Places of Injustice, Mike Mac Domhnaill. Seo leabhar gácéad is a sé ó chuirde tús lenar Johnson dul fáilte háirt a pobl sa láran an scríb nóir limní. So hello everyone, and I'm delighted to be here this evening to celebrate the release of Mike Mac Domhnaill's 8th poetry collection, Poems for Palestine. Mike Domhnaill is Mr. Tomás Quillan, and I am the poetry editor at Revival Press, which is the poetry imprint of the Limerick Writers' Centre. So to begin, I'll just say a few short words about what we do at Limerick Writers' Centre. We trace our lineage from the now legendary era of weekly readings, which became known as the White House Poetry Revival in the early 2000s. And this tradition grew from roots in the poetry circle founded by Desmond O'Grady in the White House Bar in 1954. On top of poetry readings, creative writing workshops, competitions in both poetry and prose, and a variety of other projects, perhaps our biggest focus in recent years has been on our community publishing programme. We have been working hard to make a mark in the world of literature in Limerick City and beyond, bringing book ideas and writing to people of all ages since 2008. And this evening we celebrate our 206th publication. We like to encourage all writers, whether you're pursuing a serious career or writing for fun, seeking healing or striving for personal growth. Our publishing philosophy centres on service rather than on self-promotion. In our programme we focus on creating high-quality, short-run titles that anyone can pick up and enjoy. We believe literature should exist to enrich readers' lives, to promote understanding and foster connection and community. This service-oriented approach guides all of our decisions, from manuscript selection to design choices to community engagement. Whether it's a poem, a novel, a memoir, a short story or a song, we think every creative endeavour is valuable and deserves to be shared, enjoyed and remembered, whether that's through publication or performance. We've adopted the words of John Middleton Singh as our motto, that poetry must have its roots in the clay and soil of our communities. Our goal is to make exciting literature more accessible, to celebrate the wisdom and lived experience of real people in Ireland today in their own words. We remind new writers and readers not to worry, that these are skills you can learn, and with practice your inner artist will start to shine through. Modern poetry as well has its roots in ancient oral traditions where bards served as community storytellers, historians and spiritual guides. We recognise poetry's kinship with ritual and sacred practices across cultures. Like prayer or meditation, poetry offers a structured way to engage with deeper truths, connect with ancestral wisdom and transcend everyday consciousness. We value work that acknowledges this lineage and approaches writing as a practice with spiritual dimensions. We believe poetry and literature offer resistance against dehumanization in all its forms, a resistance that cannot be colonized by authoritarian forces. Sometimes we look within ourselves, at our hometown, our nation, or at events with a global scope and see how they reflect on the human condition. And the collected poems in this book tonight are a superb exemplar of these values. Fila agus scríbhneoir se Mike Mac Domhnaill a rugga agus cónaíonn go fóil in iarthar limní. Mar luaigh me ceanna sean tuchtú leabhar ón na fiann. I first met Mike, I think it was a little under 18 months ago, when we launched his 6th collection, Weeds United, which is another fantastic bilingual book as part of the April is Poetry Month in Limerick. And that same month we launched a collection for the esteemed poet Gabriel Rosenstock, Ceann a fascinating experiment drawing from fragments of headlines which had been published in the New York Times And I remember Gabriel standing here and throwing down the gauntlet to the poets of Ireland to challenge us to look outside of ourselves, to outside of our little bubbles, and to grapple with bigger issues that sometimes perhaps poets are too self-centred or just too blissfully ignorant to write about. And he called for more writers to start producing work that would anger the reader, to provoke them to say, Christ, how right you are. Agus Captain Lyra go fear coach ag Mike an Domhnaill sin a ragart leis an gnúsach nua seo. Here in his 8th collection, Mike has more than risen to the challenge set down that night 18 months ago. Here he delves into the stories of over 40 years worth of atrocities around the globe. In 124 pieces of incredible imagery across 2 carefully crafted sections, in Gaeilge agus in Merla, Mike looks from many different points of view at attitudes to war crimes, propaganda, genocide, imperialism and exploitation. The art of poetry is often one that celebrates beauty and music and romance, that entertains us or comforts us through hardship with words of consolation or compassion. And the second section of this book offers this in spades, with glimpses at the personal, the local, the familiar, in images such as postcards, seagulls, blackberry jam and the wagtail. But our art is also about seeing the ugly sides of life, making unexpected connections and seeking out wisdom, making an audience question their understanding of how the world works. And on a day when Liam O'Hanlon's ridiculous terrorism charge was finally thrown out of the court in London, the timing of this book launch feels even more appropriate. The message is loud and clear that calling for an end to atrocities, be they in Israel or elsewhere, does not make one a terrorist sympathiser or an anti-Semite. And the bluster of the media should not distract us from our shared humanity. To quote one of the many fabulous poems in this book, The Wall, on page 23, "You could prosper side by side if only understanding entered." So with that said, on behalf of Revival Press and the Limerick Writers Centre, Gurmila Magas, Mike Ossop and Desha Hortuing, Litchfield Norta, Perry Glorish. Thanks as always to the People's Museum of Limerick for hosting us again. And special thanks to our team at the Limerick Writers Centre, especially Maura Bargrave at design work. And it's fantastic to see so many people here this evening to support Mike and his writing. I would encourage you all to take a copy of this book, the profits of which will be donated to UNICEF. Gorgeous Mike as the Hager Itaksha.
Mil Mac Domhnaill agus Mágah Galeras talked out. Thank you all for coming. As Tommy says, some of the poems were most of them in English, and the Irish has a translation as well. And there's nothing to say really. Everybody here, I'm sure, is very au fait with the whole awful situation. So if I start to talk and I might start preaching, so I think the best thing is to get straight into it. And I'll read about 7 or 8 poems, and on a Friday evening, first of all I'm delighted you made the time to come out, and you'll have time to do something else when I shut the hill up. So I'll start on page 1, which is the best place to start maybe, and goes back to 1982, which is 40 plus years. And at that time, again, a quick bit of background, Sabra Shatila weren't in what we call Palestine. They were in Beirut and in Lebanon, where lots of the Palestinians had been pushed anyway. And they were in this particular atrocity occurred in, like I say, in Beirut, Sabra Shatila. One was a camp and one was a neighbourhood, and it didn't really matter if people were being gunned down. At that time there was a crowd called the Phalange. All the people might remember that term. They were Christian militias, so they did the Christian job of shooting people on behalf of the Israelis. And at the time the Israelis didn't get directly involved, they just surrounded the place and left the others to do the work. So that was my reaction. And by the way, all these, I didn't write them recently. Well, the ones I wrote recently obviously were reacting to recent events. But I'd have written this around the time, again I couldn't pin out an exact date, but it would have been in 1982-83. So Sabra Shatilla, and there's an Irish version of this come out, so I'll lay main count in and I'll get cracking. Sabra Shatilla. Yes, it is beautiful here on the mountain, but the cries down in the valley distract. The lark above sings crisp and clear, but it is plaintive, no? The west still wakes in horror, troubled by the Holocaust, and the dawn bleary eyes will never see within Sabra and Shatilla. The wonderful complications a godsend to diplomats, on the other hand, bring static to the airwaves. What lark, what bird can sing a note today? The Israeli patrols the rim. He's not quite getting down and dirty, leaves it to phalange, to sweep from street to street, if street's the name for passageways and camps, to round up children, women, men, the bonus, young men, the prize, to gun to death, leave scattered in their rags. Look, the morning's up already, the smell at night gets worse. Yet you say that Abraham, or Ibrahim, one time walked this way. Siac cinnte tá go háling at an gnug, ach chios ground mas féidir plus tá caine. An isio cwys ag ceol go bín, ach pasbio bwydnach na ga. Le tap na maidana, dúisian an tír as tramli Auschwitz. Is tren smooth, niechik an tuafás is Sabra na Shatilla. Na tairori gafel a himplach tíri chasta agin static an radio. Céin isiog, jawn éana a ceol inúv. An tistra lach a dúlgus ar an gnug, tá lágad lan. A chard is a phalang, sciúd ar roid gysroid, mas féad a sroid a hwt, cool valley an compa. Ag stiúra in a macleid, menas postí, fyr go háirithe, ógir, bar an liste. Iad focus spréite in a garden corp. Fyr, tar brochal an lá, is títhe bíon an bula trám. Agus tá down a dyrm gur hiúil Abraham, nó Ibrahim an bailach seo. Now, rock me right to the Lampa Shop, page 7, and I just brought this, not a paint, well, a reproduction. There were 300 prints, I think, done by the artist Robert Balla in 2009, and that at the time was awful because a couple of thousand people were killed, and I think 13 Israeli soldiers were killed. So, as I said to someone there tonight, it's usually 100 to 1 killing rate, because the Israelis seem to value Israeli life about 100 times more at least than anyone else, particularly Palestinians. But when Obama was about to come into power in 2008, 2009, they went in for about 4 weeks that time. We lose count amongst the rubble as Obama takes over in that superpower which paid for the F-16s and the great tanks and the phosphorus eating flesh. Oh, thanks a lot, dear world, for your appalled coverage, while the occupiers reigned us with war ties, and Jewish children stood on hilltops viewing the action. That'll teach them. They targeted Hamas in that UN building and in that school. Their tanks took out the ambulances, no doubt carrying rockets. And they got the government buildings and the water supplies, the electricity lines. Palestinians who vote Hamas do not feel cold and eat only on occasion. That letter in my drawer is 10 times written, each time adding an extra 50 children. And we hear the apoplectic chant, "You're anti-Semitic." Part 2. Now the good news is they've stopped and will be gone before Obama takes the Oval Office. These were your olive branches. Welcome to Jerusalem. The good news is they helped a few of the maimed on their way out as they gave the fingers from impregnable tanks. See our power, we'll be back. Now switch over to Barack. And they certainly were back. Now I'll just, like I say, I'll keep moving along. I picked out page 12 next. Sorry, I'm a bit dull here for my eyes. Now, biblical vengeance, this one is. And Antonio Guterres is mentioned here, the Secretary General of the United Nations. He seems to be a very decent man, from what I can see of him. But his words seem to fall on deaf ears. Biblical Vengeance, 30th of October 2023, so that was just about 3 weeks in. Go to bed and cover your head, little one, little one. Tána bómíoch scréchiil hart is tá down ball. No sleep tonight, my little one. The war rages overhead and pounds our house to smithereens. They say Hamas has caused it on October the 7th. It all began, it seems, on October the 7th. And damn Guterres if he dares to speak of our evictions, killings, of our belittling of the Palestinian. Try to sleep, my little one. The world, it seems, owes Israel a lot. And we, on this altar of vengeance, are sacrificed. Shh, my little one. It is of the dead Israelis we must speak. Their lives derive from Yahweh and are sacred. And if we should live, encircled we will be in hopelessness and poverty. The bombs land from the sky, the world is deaf. Now I'll move into the presence of last 2 years of slaughter. Al-Shifa Hospital and Tawikionsha Asquale will come up. This is on the 17th or the 12th of November 2023. And I'm sure a lot of you felt at the time it'll be 6 weeks, it'll be even the Israelis felt it to be 3 months. We thought that was horrific. But anyway, 2 years on, reading this, 12th of November 2023, Al-Shifa Hospital. This is the doctor. This is the incubator. This is the doctor lifting the infant out of the incubator, which is no longer working due to energy switched off, due to a war. This is the doctor laying the infant on the floor, where there might still be some heat, that this infant might breathe. I heard the doctor say this on the news today. Hospital Al-Shifa. Sean Doctor Sean Gordon. Sean Doctor Egadon Lena Vassan Gordon. Not well in new side of Hilla. Tush Quinn of Kushke. The war Koga. Is a Sean Doctor a Coron Lena Vermor. Artim Yok Fos Che. Shanski Mokan Lanav in Anan Alu. Holson Doctor Ra. There are nooked enough. Now I'll take a kind of a break from Palestine to go on to, I just thought, just not to depress everybody. I suppose we can go on so far, but we have to move in other circles as well. And I suppose this is not too exciting either, because I picked it because it's related to what I saw on television last night. There was a most awful fish kill in the Blackwater, which a lot of people have known since the summer. 50 to 60,000 salmon, trout and other fish, and they've decided that they can't find the cause. Now, just before I say it, without being too political, you might be aware of Ella McSweeney, an environmentalist. She's quite up there on ear to the ground and whatever, but she writes a column in the Irish Times, and just 2 weeks ago she did a bit of research on, just to check my notes here, it's a tributary of the Blackwater, the Allow River. And the factory there is Canturk, it's the North Cork Creameries, and they made quite a big profit last year. And yes, there was about 120 people working there, and yes, farmers make money out of it, and I have no problem with that. But she, and it's all well researched, she has discovered 125 non-compliance notices in the last 4 years. And one was ammonia. Well, there was lots of ammonia, but one in particular, the ammonia was 50 times the permitted level of ammonia, which of course kills fish anyway. But they're not at fault, so I'd better cover myself. I'm not blaming the North Cork factories. But this is a bit of a tribute to Michael Viney, who was an environmentalist and a columnist in the Irish Times for years as well, which some people will be familiar with. I picked this up, the all eyes on as good as they were. It's called Let There Be, and it was in reaction to a column that Michael Viney wrote at the time. There are good people who blog from the River Clyde on otter sprains, from other places too, like Birmingham and Bristol, and now from Cork, we're glad to see. Blogging otter counts, blogging badger occurrence, trout coming upstream. These good people are spreading their good news on the flow of life, at their particular corner of a spectacular universe. While in other darker places, logging once more begins and the Amazon cries. Here near home, in my particular corner, a good farmer friend provides a seed for walkers, while another, drawing the euro dole, posts up his sign, no entry, private lands. This land is your land, this land is my land. No, hold it there, Guthrie, hold it there. That's not how it works, not how it works. The bees die in his hedges, his venom seeps from an ancient cesspool, effluent runs off to a dead stream. And keeping with my reaction, I suppose, to just 2 nights ago, I think it was RT or TG Carter, they'd gone on the Uyghur people in China, age 58. And again, the pronunciation might have caught me, the way I saw it spelled, Uyghur, but apparently it said Uyghurs. Now they're mostly Muslims in northwest China. Well, China says they're in northwest China. And so they've been abused and they've been apparently up to 1 million incarcerated and basically indoctrinated. And the reason it was on television was through cotton. So when you get your nice cheap, and work in the shut down well, but if you get a nice cheap cotton shirt in Dunn stores or whatever, why did I say Dunn stores? Every one of them, you'll see maybe responsibly sourced. And the program was delving into that. It might be from Bangladesh or India, but of course an awful lot of the cotton is coming down from this Xinjiang. Sorry, I don't mean to be smart, but my Chinese obviously wouldn't be up to scratch. Xinjiang regional province in northwestern China. Well, these slaves, you might say, are being made to pick the cotton, and then we end up wearing very cheap shirts because it's picked very cheaply. So this is for the Uyghurs. And I wrote this a few years back, and like I said, it's just something you might have seen on television the other night, so we'll keep it relevant. The Uyghurs, now what? You possibly haven't heard and have to blame you. Still fiddling with that device and following up on the Kardashians or whatever's trending. It's your lifestyle choice. But somewhere you haven't heard of, snucked away in China, being clutched to China's bosom, a delicate government which is touchy to criticism, is this place where Uyghurs live, suffering Chinese benevolence. The old empire thing, where you do down the little ones, mould them in your own image, since to be an empire, communist, capitalist or otherwise, necessitates a coming together, camaraderie if you like. No need to bother with that old culture. A noose round your neck, that's all it was. Now see how better it gets, when we all speak the same lingo. That lady on the radio, that was all makey-uppy. Imprisoned all her relatives because she spoke up in America. Anyone we lock up with good reason. But it teaches others a lesson, that I'll grant you. This is a vast country, you must realise. It isn't easy. Let it rest, can't you? Uyghurs, haven't we enough on our plate? And now we'll go back to, again, I thank, when Tomas mentioned what's his name, Gabriel Rosenstock, and he mentioned about reacting to things, I suppose, and reacting in his case to headlines in paper, in this case to reacting to Mac Domhnaill. I don't know if somebody will probably familiar with him, I find him very good. When somebody comes along and they say, geez, that guy, he's analysing things pretty well and given a very good analysis of situations. And I'm indebted to him, and this was in the Irish Times on the 17th of August 2024, again over a year ago. And maybe like me, maybe not like me, when I'd have had a Boeing, I'd have thought of a plane, that was it. But this one is called Boeing GBU 39. It hit the school. To be precise, it hit the school where they'd fled, being ordered out from Beit Hanun. Dangerous there, safer to go elsewhere, back to Gaza City. And of the few places not already flattened, they arrived at last for a semblance of safety in the school. Meanwhile, in a Boeing factory over in the States, workers come out from one of those meetings, you know the type, where productivity was discussed. along with employee welfare, how gays can get along, people of colour, all is welcome. The shareholder price was kept for the boardroom. They don't need to be bored with that. So out they came from the convivial meeting. Phew, I thought some jobs were going. And arrived back at their stations, not to modify the wings of aircraft or look again at cabin structure. No. Here at my station we check out this little fella, which we've dubbed Little Boy. Little Boy originated as GPU 39, but who the hell wants to be known as that? So Fred at the top end began to refer to Little Boy, soon caught on. So we sent them off somewhere, all the little boys, to have some fun at war games. From what I know, it's like paintball fights, where people dust themselves off afterwards. Like I say, have some fun. So, again, just a comment, Barack Obama was given the freedom of Dublin or wherever yesterday. He can herd his sheep in O'Connell Street and all that, all very funny. But during the Obama administration, there was billions and billions, as we know, pumped into Israel for their war ties. Now, I'll move on to page 17, and a small boast here. I got good wishes tonight from John Liddy, one of the men who founded the Stony Thursday book. And I'm kind of proud to say that he put one in, I have here, but I won't read it out tonight, which he published at the time, which gave me a great lift. John lives in Spain a lot of the time, but he had something to do with the Hong Kong Review. So I have this poem in the Hong Kong Review in Gaelic and in English. So as the fellow says, when I go for a pint, I can say I'm big in Hong Kong. So it's called Debris. Now I have an Irish version here as well, which I call Smunagar, and on reflection maybe I should have left as Debris, which is more a French song, but anyway, Debris, November 2023. Again, this is the first year, if you like, going back 2 years now. And already at that stage, horrific as it was, we thought it couldn't get worse. Debris. Do we make do with you? Or what word might suffice as the bombs rain down and down and down where once stood Gaza? Debris. Again I call on you. Can you describe what is left? Or should I call on the bodies buried beneath? No machinery to uncover. Debris. What is your language, if not the language of dust, the language of the dead, or the language of smoke which drifts towards the clouds? Plaintive wailing from the Middle East, and words we cannot hope to comprehend. Smunagar. Smunagar, an lóthar maroklu, no an fiú de lehéad an gapatú, is na búmi a titim is a titim san áicgar Gaza. Smunagar, gléim rísort, an énig tus a chursíos ar bhfuil fáca. Nuair cód léach an a cuip, atá fodhagat, gan bulldozers machinery. Smunagar, bhfuil teanga déan pleisagad, teanga an danig, teanga an bhol an bháis, nuair teanga an detig, a éri an suas na scandal. Bhil a gón an bhean irir, agus focail nach digan ag tapdón an fás. Now, again, reacting to news, this was in Al Jazeera, and Professor Gada Agil, she's actually a second or third generation Palestinian. She's a professor in, I think it's America, but she gave a report, and basically she was commenting on the hospital. She said when burning hospitals are no longer news, which is the case as well. I remember when Al-Shifa was first attacked, we all kind of said this can't be happening. Okay, they're saying Hamas have something underground, but if their troops, as I've said to many people, were as brave as they seem to be in a tiny area of Gaza, 2 years and they're still, you'd imagine they'd have just gone into the tunnels or taken on Hamas if they were so bloody brave. But it was easier to bomb hospitals. And eventually we take no notice of the hospitals being bombed. So to Gada Agil on the 28th of December 2024. Run up that hill, I tell myself, so that breathing becomes hard and mind switches up. Step, 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 up from gravity. Fight the weight that pulls you down. You cannot face it now. Now, not as European, not as the civilized West. The culture dipped in Christian blood as it dripped from the cross, and then broke into ranting sects which rationed off the bits of scripture suiting their cause. Some feeling Christ a bit too soft, they sought the fire and brimstone, the God, first and foremost, of Israel, the 12 tribes. Jesus of Nazareth simply a bridge, allowing return to the eye for an eye. This Europe I now inhabit has all but jettisoned the religious bit, eager to consume and flash its wares, yet with a supremacist and fascist past, gives off a post-colonial whiff, still showing that it's able to ignore another's pain. A hospital on fire, rendered all but invisible. Now again, as a kind of a breakaway from that, but to remind ourselves, unfortunately, the way the world, I suppose, has always been, Roger Casement, an Irish patriot who was executed, hanged in Pentonville in 1916, had become Sir Roger Casement, as a lot of you will know, because of his reports on the Congo in 1904, and his further report on blank there for a minute, in Peru, and then that was in 1911. So he was one of the first actual to make proper reports on atrocities, on genocides really being carried out. In the Congo, it's particularly harsh under a fellow called King Leopold of Belgium. So it wasn't the Brits in that case. But his reports would have brought about huge changes. But like I say, he ended up swinging from a rope in Pentonville. Rubber source, in memory of Roger Casement. Once you've cut off one child's arm, it seems to get easier to make the adults work faster, to have them, yes sir, yes sir. There is the ambient satisfaction of colonial rule, being in charge, determining their lives from dawn to dusk, as they backbreak. Later, on the veranda, we smile over a brandy, watch a deep red sunset. Now, thank you for your attention up to now. I think I should wind off maybe at this stage, and I will move away from all that to the present season of autumn, and we'll hope that it gives us some comfort, and maybe what Trump said today might eventually, sometime he'll tell the truth. So he's saying it's going to end in a couple of days. It's a 21-point solution. But Saudi Arabia and France seem to be in on it as well, so we'll just hope. So to maybe wind off, and I'd like to thank particularly everyone here behind Revival Press, Tomás Cahada and Dominic, Marion down there, Rigoni. But and thanks, like I say, thanks particularly to everyone who's made the effort to come here tonight. As Tomás said, they're not all about Gaza, they're not all about that. So there's various ones here, and some are, I think, half funny, but you'd need a break, wouldn't you? You couldn't just keep it the same thing the whole time. So this is called Gathering Comfort. And it's October. I wrote this last year, so it's kind of seasonal. Autumn. Wrap your colours around me, that new chill in the air, making me move faster through the leaves, the swish. Autumn. Wrap yourself around me, hold me in the stillness. Know that age does not confer wisdom, only knowing more deeply, and hurting for all the world. Talk to me through that little stream that gurgles like the newborn. Renew me with spring water, whispering the soft words of hope. Cradle the child in me, in all of us. So, I could keep. Did I mention this? Yeah, I did, and I'm very proud of that. I bring it to any protest I'm involved in, and I mind it. And I'd like to pay a particular homage to, artists like that who, at least we all react. You might say it doesn't make any difference what I write here tonight or what people paint or performances or whatever. But I suppose, hopefully, in the long term, it's going in here to the back of the head and it's going in here to the heart somewhere. And we still remember the Native American the Native American tribe who sent a couple of $100 over during the Irish famine. And like, it might have been a pittance, but we'll never forget it for them. So I hope the people in Palestine know that we're thinking of them, and the day will come, I hope, Chucky and Law, when we'll be able to celebrate a bit better and maybe offer some of the great facilities we have here in universities. I know we've brought 40 or 50 young Palestinians over recently to study in university, and hopefully we'll be able to build on that kind of thing where we can reach out and do a bit more. And yes, it's not the only place, and I know there's the Uyghurs, and I know there's lots of places, and any time in the world, I suppose. So apologies if I preached a bit, but hopefully the poems should speak for themselves, and I hope they're not propaganda, they're just reflecting, I hope, the truth. So, Garmil Margaret.
Mike's trying to raise a few bob for UNICEF, so if you've got a copy, thanks very much. If not, if you maybe you could get one before you leave. And we'll be on the Red Door, what date is that?
Tomorrow, 2 weeks, the 11th of October.
The 11th of October. So if you know anybody in Newcastle West or West Limerick, tell them about it. And we'll be there. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Mike.
They bomb mid-skies, but we still rise underneath the smoke where the hope never dies. Children running barefoot, dreams in their eyes, while the world looks away, feeding us lies. A mother holds a baby in the rubble and cries, but her spirit louder than a million battle cries. A soldier with a stone, heart made of steel. They trying to kill a people they could never kill. This ain't war, this is genocide, but we still breathing, still got pride. From the olive trees to the bloody tide, we scream free Palestine till the end of time. Can't erase a soul, can't erase a land. We stand tall with the mic in hand, truth in the beat, pain in the rhyme. Streets of Gaza, we the front line. Check the history, check the scars. They setting fire while praying under stars. You ain't talking peace while they building more bars. Our pain ain't a post, it's permanent like Mars.